quick recording on how to send a SysEx command to the Roland V-8HD. And so I actually have the manual pulled up in a couple different places. So on page 107, it gives the decimal and hexadecimal table, and we'll need that. And also how to calculate the checksum. That's both on page 107 of the Roland V-8HD manual. And then also finding what command you want to send earlier in the manual, starting on page 96 and following. But here are the panel commands. And then how a message is broken up is it always starts with this same Roland start ID. So this never changes. So if you're wanting to do a new one, you can just copy that as the first part of the string. And then the next three numbers are usually the address. And so those correspond to the address here in the manual. So let's say I'm wanting to select the program input. So then I would want to select 0, 12 hex, which is really 18 decimal, and 0. So you'll see that's here. It's in a slightly different format because that's how MIDI relay likes it. So 0, 12, 0. And so this means I'm wanting to select the program input. And then the next part is the data, or the data that you're sending, and it tells you a value range. So it's 0 to 7, which correspond to inputs 1 through 8. So if I want to do input 1, I would actually be on 0. If I want to do input 8, I'd be 0, 7. So it's a little confusing just because it's one less. But here we're going to do input 1, so we're on 0. And then you have to calculate the checksum. And so the checksum is the hardest part to calculate usually. But let's say we still wanted to do program select, so we're going to copy that address over. And then data, we don't want to select number 1. Instead, let's say we want to select number 6. So it's actually 5, just because it's one less here. So this will select input number 6. And then we need to calculate the checksum, and then it always ends with this, so we can go ahead and copy that over. And so right in here is the checksum. So how do you calculate the checksum? Well, that's the hardest part. It does tell you in the manual how to do it. It's a little bit confusing. And so I just like to think of it as you take the address and the data, you add that together, and then you subtract that from 128. Unless it's over 128, and then you just keep on subtracting 128 until you get to a positive integer above 0. And so most of the time you're not going to go above 128. And so here, if we were to add these up, it would actually be 0 plus 12 is actually not 12. You have to refer to the hex table. If you come through here, you'll see 12 is actually 18. So it's 0 plus 18 plus 0 plus 5. So 18 plus 5, we get 23. And it's less than 128. So we want to take 128 minus 23. And our checksum is 105. But we have to convert that then back into hex. So we go back and refer to our table. So 105 right here is actually 69 hex. And so our checksum is 69. And so there we go. We've just created this string that we can copy into companion or send with MIDI relay. And this will set the program input to number 6. A little bit more complicated is sometimes where, or other things to note, I should say, is sometimes you'll see in the address that it leaves an XX that tells you right above what you want to send. So sometimes it's either A or B, and so if you want to split A or B, you would change this XX to either 10 hex or 11 hex. Or let's go to the disk ones. No, not seeing any there, but it would still be copying this address down, setting your value to either on or off, either to 0 or 1, adding up the address and data, and then subtracting that from 128 to get your checksum. So that's a basic overview.